Alright, everyone, welcome back to episode number 83 of Everyday Thoughts. This is going to be a criticism focused video, so I'm just gonna talk especially about why criticism doesn't really work and the reasons it doesn't work, and also just overall what you can do instead of criticizing other people and why that is. So, starting off with why criticism doesn't really work. So, what I mean by this is obviously when, for example, you are doing something correctly and you see somebody else doing something or the same thing incorrectly, criticizing them will most likely not make them change their behavior, even if you criticize them with good intent, that being that they change for the better. Why is that so? Well, turns out that there were multiple studies on animals, and what they found was that behavior that was rewarded, or good behavior that was rewarded, was far faster adapted than bad behavior that was punished. And I would argue that we as humans are basically just far more intelligent animals, and that we also have a lot similar rooting. That's why we can actually draw these conclusions between animal examinations or overall just experiments and us, because we are not that far. That being said, why does that not work? Well, because criticism actually just puts on, I think everyone can, if you actually recall a situation where you have been criticized, you will most likely be able to find out that you were probably getting defensive quite quickly. And another thing would be that we instantly try to justify ourselves. Why is that? I have no clue, but we genuinely just start justifying ourselves and our behavior, and that isn't really what we need when we're trying to change a behavior. So what can we do instead of that? Well, what we can basically do is put the criticism into better wording. So instead of bashing somebody that they did something wrong, we can let them know about them doing something and them maybe not getting the full potential or the best outcomes that they could maybe be getting if they just changed slightly differently. Is that 100% bulletproof and perfect solution? Absolutely not, but it's just a recommendation that I think will work most of the time. And the next thing is, which I found extremely interesting, is that there's actually more people mentally sick in the US than there are people that are sick with quote unquote normal diseases overall, which I found extremely interesting. And a link that has been found, which is associated with that, I would say, is our feeling of trying to be and feel important. So we as humans have a craving, even, I would say, to feel and be important. So what does that mean? Well, by criticizing somebody, you are basically disregarding their importance and telling them that they are not that important indirectly. But by actually giving them props and enthusiasm to do something maybe a different way that could actually benefit them, well, it will most likely have a far better outcome than criticism. All right, then the last thing I want to touch on is basically just everything I've just talked about. So what we can actually take away from this would be obviously criticizing as, or not as little as possible, because that is doable, but extremely difficult and that will take time. But actually just be aware overall of how we react to that and see that from ourselves. And when it comes to judging, actually not judge really, and actually try to understand that in the same circumstances and given the same circumstances, you would probably be doing the same thing. But just because you're more fortunate to have better circumstances doesn't mean that you should blame people for having these circumstances. That might have made sense, might have not. I genuinely don't know, but I hope you understood and could take something away from this video, and I will see you next time again. Yeah.